Hey everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining me live. I'm Will Brown. I work with freelancers, small businesses, organizations here in Australia, helping them build and run websites without stepping on landmines they don't see coming. The reason I want to do this live is pretty simple. So Australia's national AI plan a couple of weeks ago just dropped. And while it's a government document, and we all know how those things read, the impact isn't really theoretical. It's already showing its client questions about AI content, about safety, transparency, responsibility, governance, that sort of stuff. So this isn't a hype session, and it's not a tech demo. It's a kind of short, practical, ask me anything, no jargon, no fluff, just the real questions about what freelancers need to really care about now, and what we can kind of safely ignore for the moment. So if you've got any questions, then just drop them in the comments as we go. And yeah, I'm just happy to answer anything that you have out there. So I'll just get things ready here. Have a look at the comments, the stream. So this should be going live on LinkedIn and YouTube at the same time. I've got my comments here. That's okay. So any questions about AI? Even like, have you even read the AI document at all? Perhaps not. I did a LinkedIn post last week. It was Australia's new AI plan. Here's what it means for freelancers and WP pros. So it's just kind of the highlights of what the document kind of really means. Because I know if you go through government documents, it can be very difficult, and the wording is usually very oblique and not very user-friendly. So I kind of went through there and extracted as much as I could to what was relevant for freelancers. I got a short version. So here's some things that you might see coming your way. More clients want to experiment with AI. Now that Australia's got this big document out now, there'll be a lot more clients, a lot more businesses looking to adopt AI. It's always the case when government moves. Big businesses usually start to embrace those things, especially when things like grants come out. But you won't just see the big businesses, it's going to be the small, medium businesses now that's going to take AI a lot more seriously. So clients are going to have an expectation that you can have at least an opinion. So here's a question that I've been getting lately. Oh, I've got some people. Hey, Ricky. How do you feel AI will change the way we design websites in the future? That's a good question. I think it's already happening. I think from all the talk I've heard on Slack channels and people messaging me directly, there's been a downturn in the number of jobs from those kind of small, maybe 1-2 page business owners. And I think that's largely due to AI. I think there's a lot of AI products out there that can quite successfully build a 1, 2, 3, 4 page website for, say, a plumber or service-based or just an information business. And I think with ChatGTP, the entry to hosting and getting your website up and live is really, really low. So I think we're already seeing it filtering up from the bottom, Ricky, in that people are designing their own AI websites and not coming straight to the design people, the dev and designs that we would normally do. So I think that's one way. I think from the top down as well, you're going to start seeing companies are going to start asking you about AI. So what parts of AI we can use, about the data as well that people have. People are going to start asking you if you use AI in your design process, which AI you're using, what context. So I think it's going to come in a whole lot of different ways. It's not just the actual building of the websites. I think it's going to be in how you handle the website, how you structure it, how you think about it, how content is produced for sure. But even just like bits of data as well. If you're using data to extract some information for the website, the client's probably going to need to know. And then you're going to think about, well, what's the governance and privacy rules around that? ChatGTP is great, or Claude or Gemini, whichever one you use. But if you think about the GDPR, a lot of talk was around that, about where that data is being stored, where that's being processed. We don't really know when we're handing over data to ChatGTP and Gemini. We don't really know exactly where that data is going, where the data servers are. We presume they're in the US, but they might not be. So you have to be really careful about what the boundary is between when you hand over that data, client data, to ChatGTP or Claude or Gemini, to where it's being stored, what the privacy concerns are. So I think we're going to get a lot more of that type of governance, security type questions coming in from clients when we're designing and developing the websites, especially at that strategy phase. So I think it's going to be a big change from bottom up and from top down. Hopefully that answers your question in a roundabout way, Ricky. Hey, everyone else, thanks for joining. Thank you so much. Here, I've got a question for everyone as an open one. Let me see if I can get my notes out here. Okay, so here's a question, a safe question for everyone. Do we actually need to disclose AI-assisted content on a client's website now, or do you think this is still optional? So you're in the phase, you kind of built the website, you're looking to add content. Should you disclose the fact that you're using AI on client websites right now, or do you think that's still optional? What are your thoughts about that? Would you use ChatGPT, Gemini in your web designs? We've got a no through here. It's a good point. It's a fair point, especially when you're thinking about client data, client privacy. The honest answer is right now it's mostly optional, but it's heading towards, I think, being expected, especially in certain sectors. So you might get away with it in service websites, but once you start doing research organizations, health data websites, that sort of stuff, there's probably going to be an expectation that you're going to have to disclose the fact that you're using some sort of AI within that design process, especially if you're covering things like content or SEO, because in order to generate meaningful data from that, you're going to have to provide some sort of information. So you have to be careful about, as I said before, about how much data and privacy you're actually giving these LLMs in order for you to generate something that's going to be useful for the client. I think that's going to be a whole thing in itself. I think there's going to be systems and frameworks that are put in place as to how can you present a client's data to an LLM without exposing personal, private data in order to get information back. Ricky's saying, I think we'll see a lot of devs using it to help speed up development, but also there'll be those who use it entirely to build and create content, etc. I completely agree. I think there's a lot of people using it just now to build up that framework, maybe do plugins, maybe do some code enhancement. But when you talk about the content in SEO, that's when security and privacy and governance start to creep in. Can you imagine what would happen if a year down the line, a client found out that some of their data was being presented by a ChatGPT, maybe one of their clients when they're talking about something? One of their clients put in a case study that they're looking at something, then ChatGPT spits out, oh, this person's website was redesigned in 2026, and this data was used to blah, 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 and it spits out all the confidential information. That would be a nightmare and a liability for a developer for sure. Here's another one that comes up quickly once AI enters a project. Where does the responsibility actually sit if AI generated content turns out to be wrong? Is it the tool? Is it the client? Is it the freelancer? Here's some questions. I've been thinking about some questions about AI. When I develop a website, yes, we always say that the client should, give us some content. In reality, that it's difficult to get content sometimes, or sometimes the content is not fit for SEO or whatever, so it requires tweaks and edits. Should we be doing those tweaks? Should we be using AI generated content? And again, who's checking that data? Who should check that data? So again, it comes down to governance a little bit, security a little bit as well. When we are using AI to generate that content, we have to make sure who is validating that content, because we can't use that generated content if it's wrong, or if it's liable. It's definitely it's going to be very, very difficult to get out of that hole. So I mean, in practice, I guess you could say the responsibility always lands with whatever human is responsible in that chain. But I think if you've got wrong data on the website, I think you have to have your client contracts very well detailed and specified as to who's responsible for what particular aspects in that. So, for example, my contract, it specifies very, very clearly that final testing and validation of the whole website is up to the client, and it doesn't go live until the client's written approval. So they are the kind of last humans in the chain that get to see everything before it is launched to a live website. Now, there's arguments that could be made afterwards if they find something and that data was generated by myself or a web developer. I guess you could argue that it was me, but there's a final chain of acceptance approval in my contracts anyway that says that the customer, the client, is always the last one, and that they need to approve everything on the website. So yeah, I mean, AI generated content is a sticky point, especially that we know that these AIs, what they call hallucination, and they're very good at it. They can be very convincing that their wrong facts are true. But yeah, we definitely need to be ensuring, if we're using AI, that data that's coming out is completely valid and it's human checked. Don't just copy it on there. Another one for Ricky, with bot traffic now exceeding human traffic across the web, what are my views? I think it's terrible. I think everyone should be blocking these ASAN networks that are used by these bots. Yeah, it's a difficult one, Ricky. A lot of people now want to appear in those AI chats, because a lot of people are using AI now first before Google. So I guess for some people, there's an expectation that's okay for their website to appear in there, but there's so much traffic. It's not just the big ones. It's not just ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude that are sending out their bots. It's all these other people who are spinning up LLMs as well. And of course, there's LLMs and data, and they're just kind of going out there and grabbing data. It's a real big problem. I think it's going to be addressed by the hosting companies very soon. I think what you might see is an AI bot filter tool within your hosting panel that will allow you to select what bots that you want to go through. So you might want ChatGPT, you might want Gemini, you might want Claude to be able to come and scrape your website and get all that goodies, so then you can be exposed on there. But you might not want all these other generic LLMs. So I think what you might see is hosting companies next year, that's my prediction, is that they'll have some sort of AI filter process that they can stop those bots hammering your website at the hosting level, but I'll still allow you the freedom to filter through which ones you want to come and get some information to your website. That was a great question. Fantastic question. Okay, here's another one. This one's interesting. So clients aren't asking for AI strategy, but they're clearly expecting us to have an opinion. So how much AI understanding is enough for freelancers right now? What are your thoughts on that? So do we need enough AI to guide decisions? Not enough to build models? What's your thoughts about what AI strategy, how much expectation, how much AI understanding do you think clients are expecting us to have about AI in freelancing right now? Thinking maybe about the year ahead. Should we be experts? Should we know that AI exists? Should we be able to use some prompts? What type of prompts should we be using? Now, me personally, I don't think I need to be an AI engineer to be a web developer. But I do think you need to understand some certain aspects. I think 2026, if a client's going to be approaching you, small, medium enterprise business, I think they're going to expect that you already use AI, that you kind of know the basics of AI, what certain tools do. So when you're doing web design, you're obviously thinking about content, you're thinking about SEO, you're thinking about image generation as well. So there's maybe voice and audio. There's lots of different tools out there for specific bits of data that we as web developers would use when creating a website. So I think we need to be aware of at least what tools are out there and what they do. I think, as I've spoken before, I think we need to understand a little bit more about what data it touches, where that data goes, and how that data is being used and stored in LLMs. And just understand about what things can go wrong when we're using these AI tools. Things like the hallucination factor, things like images. It's great to be able to generate these images, but there's a human conception about images. People don't particularly like these stock images, and they can tell what's a stock image. Can you tell what's an AI image, and is that off-putting? So you've got lots of images, and you're using those on a client website. If their visitors come and can see it's clearly AI generated, what sort of feeling does that generate for those clients' customers? Do they feel that's just a cop-out, that they haven't got real images? So things like that, what can go wrong? I think clients want judgment about direction and what to do, and not just like the jargon and hype and just put names out there. I think they want to know that you very least understand what AI is and how to use it. So I think if you can explain AI without hyping it or fearing it, I think you're probably already ahead of other people. Ricky's saying, I think at the moment everyone is trying to figure out how to use AI, and that's the issue. Yep, understand totally. This is why I was doing this AMA. I think web developers at the moment, they use AI personally. Know that AI is going to be a big thing, and that everyone's trying to figure out exactly how to use it in web development. I think it's going to be part of the development process. I think we need to think smart, because we don't want to get caught up in issues that can go wrong with AI. Another one from Ricky. There are, of course, easy ways to implement it. Chatbots, yes. Search, helping coding, but how can we use it in a meaningful way? I think those are great. Chatbots seem to be the big ones that were on the scene. There's a lot of people selling chatbot AIs to companies. But again, even those things can go wrong. You need to be careful about the data that it has access to. So in order to have a really good chatbot, then it needs to be trained on a subset, at least, of the client's data, so it can return a meaningful answer. But again, there's a borderline to how much of that data you provide to that chatbot, that LLM. Is it personal? Is it private data? Where's it being stored? Is it being used to train anything else? So yeah, you've got to be very careful about this kind of data governance with AI. We don't really have those we don't really have those checks in place with AI as to where this data is being used and trained and stored. So I think we just need to be careful, especially if we're giving client data, if we are doing that training and it's not just the client. I've just gone over 20 minutes. I don't want to be in here too long. It was like an Ask Me Anything. I've had some good questions in here. Maybe one last one that I'll throw out is what's one AI-related request that you've heard from a client recently that kind of made you pause and think, that's a new one? Is there anything, have your clients been asking you about AI recently? I've had a few already. So I work a lot with research organizations, charities, etc. They've got, especially research organizations, they've got a shed load of data that their members would find very useful. So I've already been asked by a couple of clients, prospective clients, about how to go exposing that data to their members in a meaningful, private way. And again, some of these questions I've been talking about, like security and governance of data, has cropped up. You know, if you're giving all this, if you're asking ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini to run through thousands of research papers, organizations, how can you ensure that data stays in-house and doesn't get shared out with the big bad world, competitors, all that sort of stuff? A lot of the data can be personal data, especially if you're looking at medical research organizations. So there's big questions about how that data is stored and used. Should we just be able to plug ChatGPT into our websites? Ricky thinks that using it for personalization has been the most unique request so far. Yep, I'd agree with that. Things like if we do have internal documents, how can we train bots on these internal documents safely and privately? Do we control those LLMs? Are they linked to somewhere else? Does someone siphon the data off? So we're thinking about things like data privacy, accuracy as well, unintended exposure of data to confidential clients, competitors, that sort of stuff. So sometimes the best answer might just be, let's just think about it. Let's just look at what AI you're looking to implement and let's scope this properly and ensure that we know where the right direction is going. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up there. Thanks very much for your comments. Some of them I couldn't put on screen. But yes, I understand some frustrations there. That's okay. So if this session has raised a few, okay, I should probably tidy this up, thoughts. I put together a short practical checklist to help. It's called the AI Ready Freelance Checklist. It kind of walks through how to handle AI in your freelance businesses, things like proposals, bills, handover, client trust, that sort of stuff. You can grab it free. I'll put it in the comments here. So it's willbrown.com/go/guide/AI-ready. I wonder if I could put this on screen. I probably can. There we go. Awesome. So if you go there, it's just a little guide, just rounding off some of the things that I've said today. So you can go there, have a quick look, and yeah, it might just start you on your AI journey. So I don't think you need to change everything overnight. This is just about making sure that you're making some smart updates in your process, just so you're kind of not caught off guard as expectations shift and clients start asking about AI in your day-to-day web development business. So thank you again for all the questions. Thanks, Ricky, for all your great questions and all the stuff in the comments as well. Thanks for joining me, and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy Christmas and New Year, and we'll see you in 2026. Okay, thanks. Bye, everyone.